Hello, and welcome to this session that I've been invited to present on supporting parents to promote resilience in children. My name's Sarah Darton. I'm Director of Programs at Family Links, and my background is in health visiting, and as a long-standing member of the CPHVA, I'm particularly delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you today about some practical strategies to help parents promote resilience in their children. So what we're hoping to look at today is, first of all, what is resilience? What does that actually mean? And then some parenting approaches that may support children. And we're going to look at three particular approaches, so empathy, problem solving, and self-regulation. And then some ideas of where you might be able to get some further information if that would be helpful. So let's just start by thinking about what is resilience. What does it actually mean? There are lots of different words being bandied about in the press at the moment, particularly in education and so on. And there may be words such as grit. Well, grit to me can imply a level of determination that sometimes may be unhelpful. There are times when it's wise to be able to change path, to perhaps do things differently, or to be willing to negotiate. So while some grittiness or determination may be a positive factor, it has to be used perhaps with a bit of discretion. Another word that's often used at the minute is character. But what does that actually mean? We all have character. Some characteristics or traits are more helpful to us than others. I'm never quite clear what we mean, really, when we just talk about character. Another thought about resilience, perhaps, is the concept of strength. It can be used to describe objects, such as, the resilience of steel or resilient flood defences or whatever. And it's that capacity, that strength to withstand a stress or a force. And again, that's a useful idea, but people can sometimes gain strength in really unhelpful ways. So they might gain strength by joining a gang or using drugs or alcohol to give themselves the strength to get through a difficult situation or suppress difficult feelings. And I think we'd probably agree that those behaviours are more likely to represent emotional vulnerability rather than emotional resilience. So in people, perhaps, we think of an inner strength, but also that capacity to adapt to our situation, whatever life throws at us. What resilience actually means is the capacity to bounce back. It actually comes from a Latin word, resilio, and it actually means being able to bounce back. And we think about it in terms of the capacity to bounce back from adversity. Now, adversity may be extreme, it might be abuse or neglect, it may be chronic, or it may be a one-off specific event. But also, perhaps, in more everyday terms, we think about resilience as the capacity to bounce back from the everyday knocks of life. So, for children, it might be friends not talking to them or not doing well in an exam. For adults, it might be the stresses we have over work or family life and so on. And so that capacity to bounce back from the knocks in everyday life will vary with all of us. It will be influenced by both our internal resources and our emotional capacities, I suppose, as well as external. So whether we have financial security, whether we have housing security, and so on. The timing of the adversity will also make a difference. What developmental stage we're at, what else is going on to mitigate or aggravate adversity. There's been quite extensive research on resilience, and there is some evidence about the factors that actually support the development of resilience. And some of those are within the individual, so the capacity for empathy, having a sense of motivation, having intelligence and problem-solving skills, being able to exert some self-control and having that sort of sense of self-efficacy. Those have all been factors that have been found to influence resilience. Then there are also family factors, so particularly strong evidence about the importance of one key adult and effective parenting. Now, of course, the adult may not be the parent, close relationships with other adults in the family and also outside the family can be very, very important. But it seems that having one key adult is crucially important in the development of resilience. Sibling relationships are also important and supportive of children and young people. The wider environment can have an impact. So having relationships, good relationships with peers, having good school experiences, having positive adult role models are all factors that help support the development of resilience. And Anne Marston has written extensively about this, and there are many references from her if you would like to look at further information. So today I am going to focus really on some parenting approaches from the nurturing program that particularly help to support the development of children's inner strength. So we're going to think about first, what is the nurturing program? It's actually a cognitive relational program rather than a behavioural program, although it does have behavioural elements to it. And it promotes emotional health and well-being for parents and for children. It enhances relationship skills and nurturing skills. It builds up self-esteem and self-efficacy and also empathy and social skills. And it encourages positive approaches to behaviour management. And if we're serious about promoting resilience, it's not enough to merely control behaviour. Children need a sense of self, they need a sense of connectedness to others, and positive relationships are really at the core of this, whether that's the parent-child relationship, the wider family relationship, or relationships within the school or the community. So the nurturing program is based upon 4 constructs, which are the building blocks to support positive relationships. So if we think about self-awareness and self-esteem, the importance of actually knowing ourselves, it might sometimes be called mindfulness now as well, I suppose, but knowing ourselves and the impact of our responses on others, the impact of our own past experience on how we interact with children, and understanding our own needs and the needs to nurture our own emotional well-being are all very important. The importance of self-esteem and the self-efficacy of parents and of their capacity to nurture both in their children. And then having appropriate expectations of ourselves and of children, developing a sense of mastery and competence, helping children to develop that sense. And having positive approaches to discipline that help children to develop self-regulation skills so they can calm themselves, problem-solving skills, and an understanding of their capacity to make choices and the consequences of those choices for themselves and also for those around them. And then finally, empathy. Empathy is the cornerstone of the nurturing program, and it's that capacity to tune in to someone else's emotional viewpoint. So today we're going to have a look at particularly empathy, problem-solving, and self-regulation. So empathy, as I mentioned, is that capacity to identify and understand the feelings of another person, to actually be able to see things from their emotional point of view. And this can start right from birth. When a parent tries to make sense of their baby is feeling, perhaps their baby feeling frightened by a loud noise or unsafe when they can't see or hear their parents, that's the beginning of developing empathy. And Fonagy has talked about a concept of reflective functioning. We almost think of it as sort of empathy plus. It's the capacity of the parents to understand the baby as an intentional being with his own feelings, his own needs, his own intentions. And a parent who had attended the Welcome to the World program gave us this feedback. And she said, when my baby cried and I was tired, I tried to put myself in his place and start to understand his feelings, and that crying was his only way to communicate and express his needs. It helped me calm down and look after him again, but happily. And this capacity developed, this early sense of empathy for a baby, for a young child, to understand that their feelings will be driving their behaviours. And children are much more likely then, if they experience that, to develop that capacity for themselves, which will in turn support their resilience. So parents who are able to Name and accept children's feelings by responding with empathy will help children to develop a sort of feelings vocabulary. That'll make it easier for them to express how they're feeling rather than acting out or internalizing feelings with depression or anxiety. And in the parent program, we do a role play, and I'll give you a quick sort of taster of what that's like. So we have a child coming in furious from school, having had a horrible day, everything's gone wrong, nobody wanted to speak to them for whatever reason, that they were told off, the bus was late, whatever it may be. They come home in a foul mood and they throw the bag down on the floor. And the first time round, we respond to that child's behaviour by saying, what's the matter with you? What do you think you're doing? Pick your bag up, go and put your bag away, don't behave like that, and so on. And things tend to escalate, and the child gets more upset, and the parent also gets more angry, and so on. The second time round, we repeat that role play, and we try and find the feelings driving the behaviour. Say to that child, when they come in and they throw their bag down, you look really fed up. Looks like you've had a horrible day. And it's like an emotional fire blanket, and things just calm down. So actually supporting parents to actually begin to think about a name, the feelings driving behaviour, will often help to reduce a lot of difficult behaviours and may also help prevent them from escalating, so that actually the evening turns out to be much calmer. The child may not want to talk about it at that time. They may want to walk off and have some peace and time to calm down, but at least they know they're being understood and the parents make an attempt to understand them. So empathic phrases, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with and probably you use in your own work, can also be helpful for parents to understand, so that they may start with things like, you sound really upset, you sound really angry or tired or whatever it may be. I'm wondering how you're feeling, I'm wondering how that was for you. I can see how unhappy you are. You look sad, you look tired, or maybe even you look excited. It can be hard when, or I can hear. Sometimes parents worry about using empathy, and they fear that acknowledging feelings will make them worse. But this doesn't actually seem to be the case. Naming feelings and using empathy makes them more manageable and reduces the risk of difficult feelings either being turned inwards as anxiety or depression or being acted out with aggression. Sometimes just listening and using empathy is enough. We offer parents some ideas, some steps for empathy, so that they can actually, even if they can't all of them, they can begin to practice one or two steps. These are all available as practice sheets, and they're free to download from the Family Links website, so you're very welcome to have a look at those and offer them to parents if they would be useful. But sometimes empathy on its own is not enough. We then need to move on perhaps to another strategy, and often the sort of approach we might move on to is a problem-solving approach. Practitioners can take a problem-solving approach to support each other, perhaps in supervision, or to support parents, and then parents in turn can use this approach to support their children. And this might be working through a problem that's a problem for the whole family, such as trying to get out of the house on time in the morning, or it could be a problem from an individual child, such as struggling with homework or falling out with a friend. In common with approaches such as motivational interviewing, problem assumes a partnership approach rather than an expert model, and it requires active listening and summarizing skills. So the ideas of the child are just as valid and worthy of consideration as those of the parents. So when we think about steps for problem solving, if we take an example of a family who is struggling to get out of the house in the morning because everybody's in too much of a rush, we might work through the process and think about what is the problem, the mad rush to get out. Whose problem is it? Well, it's probably everybody's. Thinking about what's already been tried is a really essential part of this process, and very respectful for parents rather than just to jump in with advice So thinking about what's already been tried. So we might have already tried shouting, rushing, telling them to hurry up, turning the TV off, whatever it may be. What's the goal? The goal is that we want to leave the house by 8 in the morning. And what's the ways to reach the goal? So then a brainstorming of different options, setting the alarm earlier, getting ready the night before, eating breakfast in the car, going to school in your pajamas. These can be wacky as well as serious. And then helping parents and children to decide then what they're going to try. If this doesn't work, and this can be reviewed, obviously, if it doesn't work, then we need to go back through the process again. Have we really identified the problem clearly enough? Have we got an appropriate goal? And do we need to find other ways to reach the solution? Of course, this won't work for every difficulty, but it's a very helpful strategy for children to develop so that they internalize the idea that problems can be solved and that they can be worked through, sometimes on our own and sometimes with the support of other people. And that's a helpful thing for children to understand and learn. Another key factor in resilience is the capacity for self-regulation. There are a number of definitions of self-regulation, but essentially it involves the ability to manage disruptive emotions and impulses and to think before you react. The ability to monitor and modify your own emotional reaction. So in the nurturing program, we have a strategy of taking time out to calm down. In contrast with programs, the approach is about developing and modeling self-regulation rather than just to be used as something, as a form of punishment. So the elements of time out to calm down that support self-regulation include explaining clearly to the child the idea of time to calm down, that we all need to take time sometimes, that it's normal to get flooded by difficult feelings, and we all need to learn to calm down sometimes, and it can be helpful for us. So discussing when it might be useful to use time out to calm down. So particularly for a child, if they're hurting themselves, or hurting others or things, or just when they're feeling emotionally flooded and they need to have that bit of time or space. Choosing a place within sight or sound of the parent is really important. Especially for young children or children with any sort of attachment difficulty, it's really important they don't feel banished, that they are still within sight or sound, that it's not them that's unacceptable in some way, that actually they just are having these difficult feelings and they just need some time to help them self-regulate. Referring to a place as a calming place, a calming cushion, or just somewhere to be quiet, somewhere that we all use to calm down, rather than the concept of a naughty step. Which one of us would want to go to a naughty place? No wonder there are battles to get children to go to the naughty step. So the more it can be emphasized that this is something we all need to do, that it's a calming place and a positive thing to do, rather than a naughty place to go. Deciding on how long that time out to calm down will last. So particularly for young children, 2 minutes is a long time. It just needs to be long enough to help the child calm. So 30 seconds to 2 minutes is often sufficient. And using some sort of visual timer, using an egg timer or even a timer, there are some lovely visual things that you can buy that you shake, like a snowstorm thing, or some sort of thing for the child to look at whilst they're calming down can also be helpful for them. And then finally thinking about the parent modelling, taking time to calm down for themselves. So they can actually say, I can feel myself getting stressed. I'm just going to take a minute to calm down. Or I'm just going to sit for a moment quietly. And just let the child understand that this is normal. And taking time to calm down is a life skill. It's not just for children. Later on, it can be helpful to ask the child how he or she was feeling before things went wrong. What was their feeling? Often their feelings are acceptable, but their behaviour isn't. So I can understand how frustrated or unhappy you were when somebody took your toy or, left you out or whatever, and it's still not okay to hit them. So the next part is then thinking about, asking the child what he or she could do differently if the same situation arose again. This is the teaching part of discipline, if you like. This is helping children to learn how to do things differently while still accepting their feelings. So when we're thinking about resilience, we're thinking about resilience for everybody, and hopefully using the skills of empathy, problem solving and self-regulation are useful skills for adults as well as for children. There are many factors that contribute to resilience, but perhaps these are three that are quite key and will be useful for parents and for practitioners to think about. There are more resources available, as I mentioned. We've got lots of free downloads on the parents section of the website. There are also books available to buy if you so wish, but the downloads are free from the parents section, and you're very welcome to direct parents there. Please do let me know if you'd like any more information. Please feel free to contact me, and my email address is there. And we also are going to have a stand at the CPHVA conference, so hopefully I might see some of you there, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.